doing this? What is going on? What did I do?
You think you can have it all and go away with it now? When you are gone, everything will be mine now.
The water swallowed me whole before I could even scream. One moment. I was standing on the riverbank with my brother Bello, his hand warm on my shoulder as he spoke softly about how we would get through Mama's death together. The next moment, both his hands slammed into my back with such force that my feet left the ground. My only brother kicked me into the river after my moms will name me the only beneficiary, and in that split second of betrayal, I understood that the person I trusted most in this world had just tried to murder me. The cold Lagos River water filled my nose and mouth as I thrashed, my wrapper tangling around my legs like chains pulling me down. Through the murky darkness, I could see his silhouette above, standing perfectly still, watching. He wasn't reaching for me. He wasn't calling for help. He was just standing there, making sure I drowned. My lungs burned as I fought against the current, my hands clawing uselessly at the water, and the last thing I remembered before everything went black was the thought that this was how I would die, killed by the brother who used to carry me on his shoulders when I was small. If you're watching this story, please like and subscribe, because what happens next will shock you, and you won't want to miss a single moment of this revenge tale. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't dead, though everything hurt like I had been beaten by masquerades at a festival. My head pounded, my ribs ached, and I was lying on something hard and wet, smelling strongly of fish and diesel. Above me stood the strangest man I had ever seen, a skinny fisherman with wild eyes and even wilder hair, dancing around me like I was a bomb about to explode. Ah, water spirit, please, I beg you in the name of God, leave me alone, he was shouting, waving a half-eaten fish at me like it was a weapon. I know, say you people day like to play pranks on us poor fishermen, but Abeg, I never do anything to offend you, oh. N.A. small fish I day catch. I know they disturb your underwater kingdom. Despite the pain radiating through every part of my body, despite the trauma of what Below had just done to me, I couldn't help the laugh that bubbled up from my chest. This man thought I was a mermaid or something from his grandmother's bedtime stories. I'm not a water spirit. I croaked out, my voice raw from swallowing half the river, but he jumped back 3 feet like I had just sprouted tentacles. The fisherman, whose name I would later learn was Uncle Chidi, spent the next hour convinced I was lying to him about my mortality while simultaneously saving my life. He wrapped me in old fishing nets that smelled like they had seen better decades, gave me warm Gary to drink, and wouldn't stop talking, not even for a second, about how his mother had warned him about beautiful women who emerged from rivers during full moons. But today no be full moon, oh, he kept saying, scratching his head in confusion. Unless you be the new generation of water spirit, we don't follow tradition again. Even spirits have on daybreak protocol nowadays. As feelings slowly returned to my limbs and the shock began to wear off, the reality of what had happened crashed over me like another wave. Bello had tried to kill me. My brother, my only brother, the one who held my hand at Daddy's funeral 10 years ago, the one who promised Mama on her deathbed that he would always look after me, had pushed me into a river and left me to die. And I knew exactly why. The will, Mama's will that was read just 3 hours ago, the one that gave me everything. The house in Lekki, the shop at Balogun Market, the 2 plots of land in the village, and the savings account we didn't even know existed. Uncle Chidi finally stopped his water spirit theories when I burst into tears, not the gentle kind that slide down your cheeks in Nollywood movies, but the ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that come from betrayal so deep you can feel it in your bones. Ah, water spirit we day cry, he said, then his face softened with understanding. Oh, you be human being. N.A. man break your heart, A.B.I. N.A. him throw you for river. I nodded, unable to speak, and he sat down beside me with a heavy sigh. My sister, N.A.W.A.O. This Lagos people, Seth, you know wickedness no get limit. He didn't know that the man who tried to kill me wasn't my husband or boyfriend, but my own blood, my only sibling, the one person in this world I thought would never hurt me. As the sun began to set over the dirty Lagos water, painting the pollution in shades of orange and pink that almost made it look beautiful, Uncle Chidi asked me the question that would change everything. So what you go do now? You go report him to police. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, tasting salt and river water, and for the first time since Mama died 2 weeks ago, I felt something other than grief. I felt anger, cold and sharp and clear. No, I said quietly, my voice steady now. I'm going to go back home, and I'm going to make him wish he had never been born. Don't click away now, because in the next chapter, you'll see how Miriam plans her revenge. And trust me, you won't believe what she does. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Uncle Chidi's eyes went wide with respect mixed with a little bit of fear. Ah, I like your spirit. No be water spirit, but N.A. warrior spirit you get. He stood up, brushing fish scales off his torn shorts. But make I ask you, you get anywhere to stay? Because if your brother thinks, say, you done die, you no fit just show up a house like nothing happened. He was right, and I hadn't thought that far ahead. If Bello believed I was dead, if he had already started whatever story he was going to tell people about my disappearance, then appearing alive would ruin any chance I had of catching him off guard. I needed time to think, to plan, to become someone he wouldn't recognize until it was too late. I fit stay for your place. I asked, knowing it was a crazy request to make of a stranger who had just fished me out of a river, but Uncle Chidi just laughed. My sister, you think say I get mansion? I get one room for Adjagun we I day share with my cousin and sometimes rat. Then he paused, snapping his fingers like he had just remembered something important. But wait-o, I know somebody we fit help you. Uncle Chidi's somebody turned out to be his older sister, Auntie Ngozi, who ran a small hotel in Ikeja where she let rooms to people who needed to disappear for a while, no questions asked. She took one look at me, river-soaked and shivering in her brother's fishing net wrap, and didn't even blink. Another one running from a man, she asked, leading me inside like this was her Tuesday routine. No, Auntie, I said quietly, my voice still rough from swallowing half of Lagos Lagoon. Running from my brother. That made her stop and turn around, her eyes sharp with interest. Your brother? As in blood brother? When I nodded, she sucked her teeth so loud the sound echoed in the narrow corridor. This world done spoil finish. Even family no day safe again. She gave me a room on the 3rd floor, small but clean, with a window that looked out over the chaos of Ikeja traffic. You fit stay here as long as you want, she said, handing me a wrapper and buba that actually smelled like detergent instead of dead fish. But I go need you to work small. Help me for the hotel. I know they run charity organization. I agreed immediately, grateful for anything that would keep me hidden while I figured out my next move. That first night in the hotel room, I couldn't sleep despite my body's exhaustion begging me to rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Bello's face in that moment before he pushed me, the coldness in his eyes that I had never seen before. We grew up in a small 2-bedroom flat in Suyulu after Daddy died, with Mama working 3 jobs to make sure we had school fees and food on the table. Bello was 8 years older than me, and everyone always said he was a responsible one, the one with sense, the one who would make something of himself. He went to university on scholarship, studied accounting, got a good job at a bank in Victoria Island. Meanwhile, I stayed home after secondary school because we couldn't afford 2 university fees, and I helped Mama in her shop, learning the fabric business from bottom to top. Nobody thought anything was wrong with that arrangement. After all, Bello was a man of the house, the one who would carry the family name forward. But Mama saw things differently, and that's what killed me, or rather, tried to get me killed. Miriam, you be the one we stay with me, she had said during her last days in the hospital, her voice weak from the cancer that was eating her from inside. Bello, he get him own life, him own family. But you sacrifice everything today by my side. I hadn't thought of it as sacrifice. I had just thought of it as love. The morning after Mama's burial, we all gathered in the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. Me, Bello, his wife Kyoma, and a few cousins who had suddenly remembered they were family. Lawyer Okonkwo was an old man who had known Mama from her trading days, and he read the will with a kind of slow, deliberate voice that made everyone lean forward in their chairs. I, Mrs. Adabimp Williams, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath all my earthly possessions to my daughter, Miriam Adabimp Williams. The room went so silent you could hear people's thoughts screaming. I saw Bellow's jaw tighten, saw Kyoma's eyes narrow, so our cousins exchanged glances that said they knew drama was coming. The lawyer continued, explaining that everything, the house in Lekki that Mama had somehow bought without telling us, the thriving shop at Balogun Market that I had been managing anyway, the 2 plots of land in our village, and the savings account with money that made my eyes water when I saw the balance. All of it was mine. To my son Bello, the lawyer read on, I leave my love and my prayers, and I hope he understands that love cannot be measured in property or money. I looked at my brother, wanting to tell him that we could share everything, that Mama's wishes didn't have to divide us, but the look on his face made the words die in my throat. After the reading, Bello didn't speak to me for 2 days straight, and his wife Kyoma made sure everyone in the family knew she thought it was wickedness and betrayal. After everything Bello did for that woman, she hissed at anyone who would listen, her voice carrying through the walls of Mama's house where we were all staying for the mourning period. He paid hospital bills. He sent her money every month, and she gave everything to that girl who did nothing but stay home. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that staying home wasn't doing nothing, that the years I spent building up Mama's shop, taking care of her when she got sick, holding her hand through chemotherapy while Bello was too busy with work meetings to visit, that all of that counted for something. But I kept quiet because I knew Mama had made her choice based on love, not calculation, and I didn't want to disrespect her memory by fighting over it. On the 3rd day after the will reading, Bello finally spoke to me. "Miriam, I'm sorry," he said, his voice soft and full of brotherly concern that I trusted completely like a fool. "I know this whole thing with the will has been stressful. Make we go take fresh air, go see the river, clear your head small." I should have known better. I should have seen the way his smile didn't reach his eyes, should have noticed how he chose a spot far from other people, should have felt the tension in his hand when he touched my shoulder. You're not going to believe what Miriam discovers next about her brother's secrets. Keep watching and don't forget to comment below what you would do in her situation. Now, lying in this hotel room 3 days after he tried to kill me, I finally allowed myself to think about everything clearly without the shock and grief clouding my judgment. Bello hadn't just been upset about the will. He had been planning something, and Mama's decision had ruined his plans. I remembered now how he had been asking Mama about her assets months before she died, remembered him trying to convince her to put his name on the house deed for security reasons, remembered how angry he got when she refused. He had expected to inherit everything automatically because he was a man, the firstborn, the successful one with a fancy bank job and the degree on his wall. But Mama had lived long enough to see which of her children truly loved her beyond what she could give them. My phone, which miraculously survived the river in my wrapper pocket though it refused to work anymore, sat on the table like a dead witness to my old life. I couldn't contact anyone from before without Bello finding out I was alive. I couldn't access my bank accounts without leaving a digital trail. I couldn't even check on Mama's shop without risking someone seeing me and reporting back to him. For all practical purposes, I was dead, and Bello was probably already spinning his story about how his poor sister disappeared, maybe ran away in grief, maybe had an accident by the river where he would eventually find my wrapper as evidence. The anger that had been simmering since Uncle Chidi fished me out of the river finally crystallized into something cold and focused. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted justice. I wanted Bello to confess what he did. I wanted everyone who thought he was a good son, the responsible brother, the successful man, to see him for the murderer he really was. But most of all, I wanted him to feel even just a fraction of the betrayal that was currently eating me alive from the inside out. Auntie Ngozi knocked on my door around midnight, bringing me a bowl of pepper soup that smelled like heaven after 3 days of eating nothing but Gary and groundnuts. "You never sleep?" she asked, settling herself on the chair by the window like she had all the time in the world for my story. So I told her everything, from Mama's will to Bello's push to Uncle Chidi's water spirit theories, and she listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding like she had heard worse stories in her lifetime of running a hotel for people in trouble. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, Then she smiled, and it was a kind of smile that made me understand why her brother said she was the smartest person he knew. "I know somebody we fit help you scatter your brother life properly," she said. "Him name and a Jerry, and him day specialize in making wicked people confess their sins." My heart started beating faster. Who is Jerry? Jerry wasn't what I expected when Auntie Ngozi finally introduced us in the hotel's small restaurant the next morning. I had pictured some tough guy with scars and a deep voice who specialized in breaking kneecaps and extracting confessions through violence. Instead, Jerry was a slim man in his 30s with gentle eyes, a laptop bag slung over his shoulder, and the kind of quiet intelligence that made you want to confess your own secrets without him even asking. "So you're the girl who survived the river," he said, shaking my hand with a grip that was surprisingly firm. "Auntie Ngozi told me your brother tried to kill you over inheritance. Sorry about that. Family wala na the worst kind. He ordered a car and pap for both of us like we were old friends meeting for breakfast instead of strangers plotting revenge, and as we ate, he explained what he did for a living. I day work as private investigator, but I no be like the ones for American film," he said, wiping pepper from his mouth with a napkin. "I day specialize in gathering evidence, mostly for women we their husbands day cheat or business people we their partners day steal. But sometimes I day help people like you we justice system no fit reach." I liked him immediately because he didn't try to talk me out of what I wanted to do or waste time telling me that revenge was wrong. Jerry's plan was simple but brilliant in its psychological torture potential that made me wonder if he was somehow related to the devil himself. "We no go just expose your brother," he explained, pulling out his laptop and showing me a detailed spreadsheet that made my trader's heart happy with its organization. "We go make him expose himself, make him confess on camera, make him beg for forgiveness in front of everybody we him done day form for." The plan had 3 phases. Phase 1 was gathering evidence of Bello's financial crimes because Jerry was convinced that someone willing to kill for inheritance was probably stealing from other places too. Phase 2 was psychological warfare, making Bello paranoid and afraid through a series of carefully planned incidents that would make him think his dead sister's ghost was haunting him. Phase 3 was a confession, creating a situation where Bello would have no choice but to admit what he did in front of witnesses who couldn't be silenced or bribed. But all of this go cost money, Jerry warned me, and he go take time, maybe 2 or 3 months. I thought about Mama's money sitting in that bank account that only I could access, money that Bello had tried to kill me for. "I get money," I said firmly. "Whatever it costs, I go pay him. Just make sure, say, when we finish with him, everybody go know the kind of person my brother really be." The first phase started immediately with Jerry using his contact to investigate Bello's life in ways that made me uncomfortable with how much information people could find when they really tried. Within 1 week, Jerry had Bello's bank statements, his emails, his text messages, even his browsing history, and what we found made my attempted murder look almost reasonable in comparison to his other crimes. Bello had been stealing from the bank where he worked for the past 3 years. Nothing big enough to trigger immediate alarms, but steady amounts that added up to almost 20 million naira. He had a girlfriend in Abuja who didn't know he was married, and he had been promising to marry her too while taking loans in her name. His wife Kyoma didn't know that their house in Oja was mortgaged twice over for business deals that never existed. And most damning of all, he had taken out a life insurance policy on Mama 2 months before she died, with himself as a sole beneficiary. "Your brother and a correct criminal," Jerry said with something almost like professional admiration in his voice. "Him don day plan to kill your mama too if the cancer no do the job fast enough." That revelation hurt worse than the river water in my lungs because it meant Bello's betrayal ran deeper than I had imagined. Armed with this information, we moved to phase 2, and this was where I finally got to have some fun with the whole traumatic situation. Jerry had a friend who specialized in special effects, and together we created a series of hauntings that would have made Nollywood directors jealous with their realism and creativity. First, we hacked Bello's phone to play recordings of my voice at random times, just snippets of things I used to say. "Brother Bello, why you do me like this?" in the middle of his business meetings. "Mama will never forgive you," when he was alone in his car at night. Then we started with the physical manifestations that required me to take some risks but were absolutely worth it for the satisfaction. I knew Bello went to the gym every morning at 6. So one day I stood across the street wearing Mama's old wrapper and headscarf, just standing there, staring at him. When he looked up and saw me, his face went white and he dropped his gym bag. But by the time he crossed the street, I had disappeared into the early morning crowd. Guy, I think say I Daisy Ghost. I heard him tell his friend on the phone later when Jerry played me the recording. I swear, I see my sister for road this morning, the same sister I. He stopped himself, but we both knew what he almost said. This is getting intense. Drop a comment if you think Miriam should show mercy or go hard on her brother. And please share this video because everyone needs to hear the story. The hauntings continued for 3 weeks until Bello was a nervous wreck who jumped at shadows and couldn't sleep without lights on like a small child afraid of monsters under the bed. His wife thought he was going crazy and threatened to leave him if he didn't see a pastor. His co-workers noticed he kept making mistakes at work, and there were rumors that the bank was investigating him for irregularities, thanks to an anonymous tip Jerry had sent to the right person. But the best part, the absolute peak of Phase 2, happened when we sent him a package at his office. Inside was Mama's old Bible, the one she read every night before bed, with a bookmark placed at Psalm 109, verse 17. He loved to pronounce a curse, may it come back on him. He found no pleasure in blessing, may it be far from him. Bello called in sick for 2 days after that, and according to Jerry's source who worked in his building, he was seen consulting with at least 3 different pastors about spiritual warfare and ancestral curses. The boy on day crack, Jerry reported with satisfaction. Another 2 weeks, he go day ready to confess anything just to get peace of mind. But I wasn't satisfied with just his mental breakdown. I wanted the world to see him for who he truly was. Phase 3 required the most planning because we needed Bello to confess in a setting where people would believe him, and where he couldn't claim later that he was coerced or drugged or under spiritual attack. Jerry's solution was brilliant in its simplicity and relied entirely on Bello's own guilt and fear working against his common sense. We would use a family Thanksgiving service that was being planned for 1 month after Mama's burial, a common tradition where family members gathered to thank God for the deceased's life and to declare that the mourning period was officially over. Bello, as the eldest son and now supposedly the head of the family since I was missing, would be expected to give a speech about Mama and about his commitment to honoring her memory. That's when we would strike, not with violence or threats, but with truth, technology, and his own guilty conscience turning against him. On that day, Jerry explained, showing me the final plan on his laptop. Your brother go confess everything on him own, and he go day recorded by 10 different cameras we him no even know exist. I smiled for the first time since this whole nightmare began, and it wasn't a nice smile. Let's make sure say when we finish with him no fit show face for Lagos again. But 2 days before the Thanksgiving service was scheduled to hold, something happened that we didn't plan for at all. I was walking back to the hotel from the market where I had been helping Auntie Ngozi buy food for her guests when I saw a small girl, maybe 6 years old, standing by the roadside crying her eyes out in that desperate way that children do when they are truly lost. I should have kept walking because getting involved meant risking someone recognizing me even with my new short haircut and different style of dress. But I couldn't. I just couldn't walk past a child in distress after Mama had raised me to believe that protecting the vulnerable was a sacred duty. Wedding happened. Small girl, I asked, kneeling down to her level. You lost. She nodded, sobbing that she couldn't find her mother, and I was about to take her to the nearby police station when a woman rushed up, screaming with relief and gratitude. Thank you, my sister. Thank you for finding my Pekin. And that's when I looked up into the face of my brother's wife, Kyoma, and watched her eyes go wide with shock as she recognized the sister-in-law she thought was dead. The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment as we stared at each other. Then Kyoma did something I absolutely did not expect. She grabbed my arm and whispered urgently, "We need to talk about your brother. I know what he did." Kyoma pulled me into a nearby restaurant before I could protest or run, or do anything sensible like maintain my cover and avoid blowing up Jerry's entire carefully planned operation. Her daughter, the little girl I had just helped, was sent to sit at a table far from us with ice cream and cartoons playing on the restaurant's TV to keep her distracted. When did you know? I asked immediately, my voice harder than I intended, because this woman had been making my life hell with her comments about how I didn't deserve Mama's inheritance, and now she was acting like we were co-conspirators. Kyoma looked older than she had just 3 weeks ago, with dark circles under her eyes and a tiredness that went deeper than physical exhaustion. I suspected something was wrong the day you disappeared, she said quietly, stirring her tea without drinking it. Bello came home that evening with your wrapper, claiming he found it by the river, saying you must have had an accident. But him behavior was wrong, you know? Him no cry, him no panic, him just calm, too calm. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely a whisper even though the restaurant was nearly empty. Then I find text messages for him phone between him and one man, discussing how to make it look like accident. Miriam, your brother Don planned to kill you for weeks before Mama even die. The revelation hit me like another push into the river, because it meant this wasn't a moment of anger or temporary insanity brought on by the will reading. Bello had been planning my murder carefully and deliberately, probably since the day Mama got sick, and he realized you might not leave him everything he thought he deserved. Why you never talk? I demanded, anger rising in my chest like floodwater. You know, say your husband try kill me, and you just they keep quiet. Kyoma's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy for her because whatever she was going through was nothing compared to drowning in a river, put there by your own brother's hands. I wanted to tell somebody, I swear, she said, her voice breaking. But Bello, him threatened me. Say if I open my mouth, him go make sure say I never see my daughter again. Him even show me videos so men him know we fit do anything for money. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup. And I been day think say you don't die for real. Say nothing fit change that. But now you day alive, Miriam. How you survive 'em? I told her about Uncle Chidi and his water spirit theories, and despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal and complicated emotions swirling through this conversation, we both started laughing at the absurdity of it all. After the laughter died down and reality came crashing back, I had to make a decision that could either strengthen my revenge plan or destroy it completely. Could I trust Kyoma? Was this a trap? Was she here to gather information for Bello so he could finish what he started? I know wetting you day think, Kyoma said, reading my face with the accuracy of someone who had spent years navigating dangerous men and their schemes. You day wonder if I day work with Bello, if it's an A setup. But Miriam, I swear on my daughter life, I want that man to pay for what him do. She pulled out her phone and showed me something that made my heart race with possibility. Recordings, dozens of recordings of Bello talking to his friends about me, about the will, about his plans. I been day record him for the past 2 weeks, she explained, since I confirmed say him actually try kill you. I been day gather evidence because I know say one day, I go need to leave him. And when I do, I want make sure say him no fit hurt me or my peeking. This was more than I could have hoped for. A witness from inside Bello's own house. Someone who had access to information that even Jerry with all his investigating skills couldn't easily obtain. But it also complicated things because Kyoma had her own motivations, an agenda that might not align perfectly with mine. I called Jerry immediately and told him to meet us. And when he arrived 30 minutes later with his laptop bag and his calm demeanor that never seemed to waver regardless of circumstances, he assessed the situation with the efficiency of a general evaluating battlefield conditions. This one an A game changer, he said after listening to Kyoma's recordings and hearing her story. But we gon' need to adjust the plan small because now we get inside person we fit help us set up your brother proper. The new plan was even more delicious in its poetic justice than the original because now we could orchestrate Bello's downfall from within his own household. Kyoma would convince Bello to move the Thanksgiving service to a bigger venue, claiming that more people wanted to attend to honor Mama's memory, which was partially true because Mama had been well known in her trading community. What Bello wouldn't know was that this bigger venue had excellent acoustics and was already wired with cameras for events. Then, right before Bello's speech, Kyoma would play a recording that would shatter his composure completely. My voice, speaking from the grave he thought he had sent me to, revealing everything he had done. "The shock go make 'em lose control," Jerry explained, his eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of a plan coming together perfectly. "And when people start asking questions, your brother go either have to lie in front of everybody or confess. Either way, him done finish. Can you imagine what's about to happen? Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because the next chapter is the explosive finale you've been waiting for." But Kyoma had one condition that complicated the revenge plot I had been nursing in my heart for the past month. "I want you to give Bello one chance to do the right thing," she said, looking at me with a pleading expression that reminded me uncomfortably of Mama when she used to beg us not to fight his children. "Before we destroy him publicly, let me tell him say you day alive. Let me give him opportunity to confess on him own and beg for forgiveness. If him refuse, then we go proceed with the plan." I wanted to say no immediately, because why did Bello deserve any mercy after what he did to me, after he watched me drown without reaching out to save me, after he tried to kill our own mother for insurance money? But Jerry surprised me by supporting Kyoma's suggestion, not because he cared about Bello's redemption, but because it would make the revenge even sweeter if Bello refused a chance to come clean. If we give him opportunity to confess privately and him still choose to lie, then when we expose him publicly, nobody go fit say we too harsh or we no give him chance. Jerry reasoned with the logic of someone who understood how public opinion worked in Lagos, where sympathy could shift faster than traffic patterns. Reluctantly, I agreed, but only because it would make Bello's eventual destruction that much more justified in the eyes of everyone watching. The confrontation happened 3 days before the Thanksgiving service in Bello's office at the bank, during his lunch break when Kyoma knew he would be alone. She went in first with her phone recording everything while I waited outside with Jerry in his car, watching through the app that Jerry had synced to Kyoma's phone so we could see and hear everything in real time. "Bello, we need to talk," Kyoma said, her voice steady despite the fear I knew she must be feeling because I had lived with my brother long enough to know how he reacted when cornered. "About Miriam." I watched Bello's face on the small phone screen, so how his expression changed from confusion to wariness to something that looked almost like fear. "What about Miriam? You know, say we never find a body yet. The police still day search." Kyoma cut him off with a bitter laugh that had no humor in it at all. "Stop lying. Bello, I know what you did. I know say you push her into the river. I know say you been planning 'em for weeks. And I know say you think say she done die, but she no die. Miriam day alive, and she day plan to expose you." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears as I watched my brother process this information, that his murder attempt had failed. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold and empty of all the brotherly affection he had pretended to have. "Where she day?" Chapter 5. The Thanksgiving service was more packed than a Danfo bus during rush hour with family members, church people, Mama's trading friends, neighbors, and even some people I didn't recognize who claimed they owed Mama money or favors and wanted to pay their respects properly. Bello stood at the front of the hall in his best Agba, looking every inch a grieving son and responsible family head, completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse around him like a poorly built Lagos mansion during rainy season. Kyoma had reported back after their confrontation that Bello had refused to confess, had actually threatened her again with violence if she said anything to anyone about Miriam being alive, and had insisted that we had no proof of anything since it would be my word against his. Him say nobody go believe, say him try kill him own sister without evidence. Kyoma had told us, shaking her head at her husband's arrogance. Him don't even prepare a speech for the service where him go talk about how much him miss you and how him go honor Mama memory by taking care of everything she leave behind. That last part made my blood boil because taking care of everything clearly meant stealing my inheritance now that he thought I was permanently out of the picture. Well, today he would learn that some things refused to stay buried, including sisters who were too stubborn to die. The service started with prayers and hymns and testimonies from people whose lives Mama had touched with her generosity and wisdom that made me cry real tears for the first time since the river. I was sitting in the back corner wearing a church hat that covered most of my face and sunglasses that made me look like I was either hiding from enemies or trying to be stylish about my grief. Jerry sat 2 rows ahead with his laptop bag that wasn't actually carrying a laptop, but rather recording equipment that was already transmitting everything to multiple cloud storage locations where Bello couldn't reach them even if he tried. Uncle Chidi, bless his talkative soul, was there too, invited by me because I wanted him to witness the conclusion of the story he had accidentally become part of when he fished me out of that river thinking I was a water spirit. Auntie Ngozi was positioned near the exit with her phone ready, just in case Bello tried to run when things went bad for him. Everything was in place like pieces on a chessboard, and Bello was about to discover he had been playing checkers while everyone else was playing something far more dangerous. When the pastor announced it was time for the family representative to speak, Bello stood up with the confidence of a man who thought he had gotten away with murder. Brothers and sisters, family and friends, Bello began, his voice smooth and practiced like he had rehearsed his speech 1,000 times in front of a mirror. Today we gather to celebrate the life of my beloved mother, Mrs. Adibimp Williams, a woman of virtue, strength, and unwavering faith. He went on and on about Mama's qualities, about her sacrifice, about her love for family, and every word that came out of his mouth felt like another betrayal because he was using Mama's memory to paint himself as a dutiful son while planning to steal from the daughter she had actually chosen to leave everything to. My mother taught us the value of family above all else, he continued, and I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing at the irony of those words coming from a man who had tried to murder his own sister. She taught us that blood is thicker than water, that we must always protect and care for each other no matter what challenges we face. The audience nodded along, some women dabbing at their eyes with handkerchiefs, completely taken in by his performance. Then Bello's voice got heavy with false emotion. As many of you know, my younger sister Miriam has been missing since our mother's burial. We have searched everywhere, contacted the police, prayed for her safe return. He paused dramatically, and I could see him working up to tears. But I fear the worst. That was Kyoma's cue, and she stood up from her seat in the front row, her hand trembling as she held up her phone connected to the whole sound system that Bello thought was only for music and microphones. "Bello, stop lying," she said, her voice amplified for everyone to hear, and the entire hall went silent like someone had pressed a mute button on the world. "Miriam is not missing. You know exactly where she was supposed to be, dead at the bottom of the river where you pushed her." The gasp that rippled through the crowd sounded like wind through dry leaves, and I watched Bello's face go from confusion to anger to panic in the space of 3 seconds. "Kyoma, what are you talking about? Have you gone mad?" But his wife just shook her head sadly and pressed play on her phone, and suddenly my voice filled the hall, the recording we had made specifically for this moment. "My name is Miriam Adibimp Williams, and I am speaking to you from beyond where my brother thought he had sent me. 3 weeks ago, my only brother kicked me into the river after my moms will name me the only beneficiary, because he wanted everything our mother left behind." The recording continued with details about the will reading, about Bello's reaction, about how he had pretended to comfort me before leading me to that riverbank where he tried to kill me with his own hands. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Don't stop watching now, and make sure you comment what you think should happen to Bello. The hall erupted into chaos with people shouting questions and accusations, some calling for police, others crying, and a few trying to defend Bello by saying this must be some kind of misunderstanding or spiritual attack. But Jerry was already playing the video recordings on the projector screen that Bello thought was for displaying pictures of Mama, recordings of Bello talking to his friends about getting rid of me, recordings of him checking insurance policies and calculating his potential inheritance, recordings of him practicing his sad face in the mirror before coming to this very service. "It's edited. It's fake. Somebody is trying to destroy me," Bello shouted, but his voice lacked conviction because he could see the faces of everyone he knew turning against him as they recognized the truth in what they were witnessing. Then I stood up, removed my hat and sunglasses, and started walking slowly toward the front of the hall, and the screaming that followed was louder than anything I had ever heard at a Lagos party. "Ghost! Water spirit! She don't die and come back." People were scrambling over chairs trying to get away from me, and Uncle Chidi, that wonderful man, was laughing so hard he couldn't breathe, telling anyone who would listen, I tell Una, say this girl's strong past death." I reached the front where Bello was standing frozen like someone had poured cold water mixed with cement on him, his mouth open but no word coming out, his eyes wide with the kind of fear that comes from seeing your worst nightmare walk right up to you in broad daylight. "Hello, Brother Bello," I said softly, and the microphone caught every word, transmitting it to the silent crowd that was now watching like this was the season finale of their favorite TV series. "Did you miss me? Did you think the river would keep me? Did you think you could kill me and take everything Mama worked for and nobody would ever know?" He tried to speak, but only managed a strangled sound that might have been my name or might have been a plea to God himself. "I should have known," he finally whispered, so quietly only I could hear. "I should have known you were too stubborn to die easy." Then his face hardened with anger because apparently attempted murderers don't like it when their victims refuse to stay dead. "You think you've won? You think anyone will believe the setup? I'll say you staged everything, that you're trying to frame me because you're greedy." But Jerry was already handing papers to the police officers who had just arrived, papers documenting everything including Bello's theft from the bank, his double life with multiple women, his forged documents, and most damning of all, his text messages planning my murder weeks in advance. The police arrested Bello right there in front of everyone, while his wife Kyoma cried not for him, but for the life she had wasted on a man who turned out to be more monster than human, and I felt something I didn't expect to feel in this moment of victory. Sadness. Not for Bello, because he deserved everything coming to him and probably more, but for the family we could have been if greed hadn't poisoned his heart, for the brother I thought I had who turned out to never really exist except in my naive imagination. The next few weeks were a blur of police statements and court proceedings and media attention, because apparently Lagos people loved a good scandal involving inheritance and attempted murder and dramatic returns from presumed death. Bello's bank fired him and prosecuted him for the money he stole. His girlfriend in Abuja sued him for fraud and emotional distress. Kyoma divorced him and got custody of their daughter plus a settlement that included the house he had been planning to sell for profit. And me? I got justice, got my inheritance properly transferred to my name, got Mama's shop back under my management, and got the satisfaction of knowing that everyone who thought I was just a quiet daughter who stayed home now knew I was a daughter who survived murder and came back stronger. Uncle Chidi became a regular visitor at Mama's shop, telling everyone who would listen about the time he saved a water spirit who turned out to be a warrior woman, and eventually I gave him a job managing deliveries because his talkative nature was perfect for customer relations. 6 months after the Thanksgiving service that became Bello's confession and arrest, I visited him in prison one last time because Jerry said it would give me closure even though I wasn't sure I wanted closure with a brother who had tried to kill me over money and property. He looked smaller somehow, diminished in his prison uniform, with none of the arrogance and confidence that had made him think he could get away with murder. "Miriam," he said when they brought him to the visiting area, and there were actual tears in his eyes that might have been real or might have been another manipulation attempt because I had learned not to trust anything about Bello anymore. "I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't change what I did, but I'm sorry." I looked at him for a long moment. This man who was my only brother, who had once protected me from bullies in primary school, who had helped me with my homework and celebrated my birthdays and promised Daddy at his funeral that he would always look after me. Then I thought about the coldness in his eyes when he pushed me into that river, the calculations he must have made about my worth versus his greed, the weeks he spent planning how to kill me without getting caught. "Mama knew," I said finally, my voice steady and clear. "She knew you would react badly to the will. That's why she left me everything, because she knew I would use it to help people and build something good, while you would just waste it on appearances and temporary pleasures. She loved you, Bello, but she knew who you really were." I left the prison without looking back because Bello was no longer my brother. Not really. He was just a lesson I had learned about betrayal and survival and the importance of knowing who deserves your trust. I used Mama's inheritance exactly the way she would have wanted, expanded the shop to employ more young women who needed opportunities, donated to cancer research in her name, helped Kyoma start her own business so she wouldn't depend on any man for survival again, and even gave Uncle Chidi enough money to buy his own fishing boat and upgrade from his one-room situation in Ajagun to a decent 2-bedroom apartment. Auntie Ngozi's hotel got renovated and now specifically helps women escaping dangerous situations find safety and restart their lives with dignity and support. Every morning when I wake up in Mama's house in Lekki, the one below tried to steal from me by stealing my life. I thank God for Uncle Chidi's fishing nets and his water spirit theories, for Jerry's investigative skills and strategic planning, for Kyoma's courage in choosing truth over fear, and for the river that refused to keep me. My only brother kicked me into the river after my moms will name me the only beneficiary, but the river spit me back out stronger, smarter, and ready to build the kind of legacy Mama had always dreamed of for me. And that, my friends, is how a water spirit who wasn't really a water spirit became a warrior woman who changed her story from victim to victor. The end. Thank you so much for watching this story to the end. If it touched you, if it made you feel something, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below what you learned from Miriam's story, and stay tuned for more incredible true life stories.